I'm Matt Marinkovich, and I live on San Juan Island, Friday Harbor. We moved up here in 2003. My wife, Maureen, youngest daughter, Lucy, and then there's Sophia in the middle, and Madeline is the oldest. Madeline and Sophia both fish with me in Bristol Bay, Alaska. And I come from Tacoma, and I come from a long line of commercial fishermen. So I come from that stock of Croatian immigrant fishermen. So both of my grandparents both my grandfathers were commercial fishermen. All my uncles, my brothers, myself, and my dad, of course. And yeah, so I'm still doing it. I don't know how old I was, but I'd be hanging out on top of the house watching the net come in. And I think I actually learned a lot about fishing, pulling lines, vectors, and drag, pulling things through the water. Because after I watched that per se net come in a whole bunch of times, it's like, I kind of got this figured out. I think I can almost bring it all back from just standing there and watching it all happen. So I primarily catch fish and sell them into the processing system that surrounds pretty much any salmon run. There's a salmon buyer looking to buy the fish from the fisherman as a raw product, and that's primarily how I make my living. And I do most of my fishing in Bristol Bay, Alaska, but I've also fished down in Puget Sound pretty much my whole life. And I gill net, so you set the net out in a line, the fish get tangled, and then you bring the net in, and you got to pick them out. The Canadian Fraser River run versus the Bristol Bay run, they're both sockeye runs. In 2010, the Fraser River returned, I think it was like 33 million fish, and on that cycle, 2014, 2018, it continues to return a big return on those years. And so there's still a lot of life in that river, but they're severely challenged with, we're down here, so there's a lot of people. People and salmon kind of don't mix. Their runs aren't coming back on that Fraser River very well. Also, Alexandria Morton has done a lot with to basically kind of get rid of the salmon farms that are along the out-migrating routes of the Fraser River sockeye, and that, I believe, had a lot to do with the decline of the Fraser River. You look at the Bristol Bay run, and that is just the model of success for sustainability of a run, because there are no people up there, and it's just open, clean, natural runs. There's no enhancement efforts. There's nothing. It's just have at it. If you're a fish, it's where you want to be because it's completely pure, clean habitat. And this year, the Bristol Bay run returned, these are just ballpark numbers, over 60 million fish. Not 68, maybe 62, 3, 4, but I mean, that's a lot of fish. 60 million sockeye salmon returned to that general area. And in Bristol Bay, those runs are managed. They watch, they're counting the fish when they're coming in. They're counting the fish that are being caught, and they know what's going on. And when they get to their escapement threshold that they need, they let us fish wide open. And it's just a real model of success. And basically, any salmon run could be like that. I think what we're fishing on is more hatchery fish than the wild fish. And I mean, if you come at it from a very Puritan perspective, you would want no hatchery fish and just let the the wild salmon rebuild themselves. The problem with that is then you wouldn't have a salmon fishery, and it's this interesting balance because you've got to have people interested in the fish for a business perspective. Like commercial is business, so is sport fishing is a business. And you need those business interests involved in the fishery because if you don't have them, then you don't have the politics to keep the runs going. The Chinook and coho fisheries that we partake in, there are some fisheries that we do out of Bellingham, Dungeness Bay, Point Gardner Bay, and those are hatchery surplus of like the coho runs or the king runs. And like I was just saying about the hatchery fish diluting the wild stock, those fish need to be caught in order to have the wild fish have room to spawn or not dilute their gene pool. And so when we fish for the wild stocks of, let's say, Chinooks, when we're fishing for the hatchery surplus of Chinooks out of Bellingham and Samish Bays, we're actually helping the wild stocks because we're catching those fish before they can, so they don't dilute the, So it's kind of confusing to people, like, how can, because here's a locally caught Chinook salmon and people feel guilty about eating it. It's like, it's okay. You can eat it because of what I just said, which is kind of confusing, and it's so hard to explain to people, but, it is all right. Salmon are very resilient and they can make it, they're a great species, and they're going to be here a long time, and we just got to take care of them, and then we'll keep going with them. So, great. And those orcas should learn how to eat a seal, and then they'll be fine.